14 April 1975, the world welcomed a man who would one day be known as the Spider. Born in Sao Paulo, Brazil, Anderson Silva was destined for greatness. And while many people know him as a UFC legend, there's much more to his story than just the knockouts and championships. In this video, we'll explore Anderson Silva's incredible rise to the top, his unforgettable battles, his new records in the UFC, and how his influence is still making waves in 2024. You won't want to miss this journey into the life of one of the most iconic fighters in MMA history. By the end, you'll understand why Anderson Silva isn't just another name in the UFC record books. He's a symbol of greatness, resilience, and an unmatched fighting spirit. But before we go in, here's a question. What does it take to not only become a UFC champion, but to stay on top for as long as Anderson Silva did? Keep watching to find out. Anderson Silva trained in MMA disciplines from a young age, including Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Taekwondo, blending them all into his fluid and dangerous style. When he finally made his UFC debut in 2006, no one knew that Silva would go on to create a legacy unlike anything MMA had seen before. In his second UFC fight, he challenged and defeated the middleweight champion Rich Franklin at UFC 64, delivering a brutal knockout and claiming the title. That's when the Spider began weaving his web of dominance. For the next 7 years, Silva would go on to defend his middleweight title a record 10 times. Silva's fights became must-watch events, and his highlight reel knockouts against fighters like Vitor Belfort, Chael Sonnen, and Forrest Griffin are still talked about today. Imagine being so good that even your challengers admit they had no idea how to beat you. That's the Anderson Silva effect. One of Anderson Silva's most iconic fights came in 2010 when he faced Chael Sonnen at UFC 117. For 4.5 rounds, Sonnen dominated Silva with relentless wrestling, something no one had ever done to Silva before. It looked like the end of Silva's reign was near. But with less than 2 minutes left in the fight, Silva pulled off one of the greatest comebacks in UFC history by locking in a triangle armbar, forcing Sonnen to tap out. The fight became legendary, not just because of Silva's win, but because it showed the world what kind of heart he had. Even when everything was going wrong, he found a way to win. What's more terrifying than a fighter who can knock you out at any moment? How about a fighter who can win even when he's losing? Silva's knockout of Vitor Belfort at UFC 126 is another highlight that stands out. With one perfectly timed front kick to the face, Silva put Belfort to sleep and defended his title again. This moment became one of the most memorable knockouts in UFC history and solidified Silva's status as the best striker the UFC had ever seen. But even the greatest fighters are not invincible. Anderson Silva's 16-fight UFC win streak came to an end in July 2013 when he was defeated by Chris Weidman at UFC 162. Silva, known for his playful and often risky fighting style, dropped his hands and taunted Weidman throughout the fight. But this time, it backfired. Weidman landed a clean punch, knocking Silva out and taking the middleweight belt. Silva's attempt at redemption came in a rematch later that year at UFC 168, but tragedy struck. In the second round, Silva threw a leg kick that Weidman checked, causing Silva's leg to snap in one of the most gruesome injuries the UFC had ever seen. For many, this looked like the end of Anderson Silva's career. He was 38 years old, coming off 2 losses and a horrific injury. The question on everyone's mind: could Silva ever return to form? You have to wonder, how do you come back from an injury like that? For most, it would be the end. But Silva's story wasn't over. Anderson Silva did what few thought possible. In 2015, after a long recovery, Silva made his return to the Octagon to face Nick Diaz at UFC 183. While the fight ended in a unanimous decision win for Silva, it was later overturned to a no contest due to both fighters failing drug tests. Though Silva's post-injury fights never quite reached the same legendary heights as his earlier career, his resilience and love for the sport kept him going. He continued to fight some of the UFC's top contenders, like Michael Bisping, Daniel Cormier, and Israel Adesanya, showing flashes of the greatness that had made him a champion for so long. Even though he wasn't winning titles anymore, Silva's ability to compete at a high level well into his 40s was a testament to his skills and mental toughness. Few fighters in UFC history have had careers as long and impactful as Anderson Silva. At what point does greatness become more than just wins and losses? For Silva, it's about the impact he left on the sport and the fighters who followed. In 2020, Silva officially parted ways with the UFC after a long and storied career. But his impact didn't stop there. Silva has continued to compete in boxing matches, including a victory over former world champion Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in 2021, proving that his striking skills are still sharp. As of 2024, Silva holds several UFC records that may never be broken. His 16-fight winning streak in the UFC is still the longest in the promotion's history. He also holds the record for the most consecutive title defenses in the UFC middleweight division, with 10 defenses. His reign as middleweight champion lasted for an astonishing 57 days over 6 years of dominance. Beyond the numbers, Silva's influence is seen in today's generation of fighters. His striking techniques, footwork, and fight IQ have been studied and emulated by many of the UFC's top competitors. Fighters like Israel Adesanya, one of today's most successful middleweights, have openly credited Silva as a major influence on their careers. Think about it, how many fighters can say they're still inspiring the next generation years after their prime? Silva's legacy isn't just about what he did in the cage, but about how he changed the sport forever. In 2024, Anderson Silva is more than just a UFC legend. He's a symbol of perseverance, innovation, and passion for martial arts. Outside the Octagon, Silva has also made a name for himself in movies, media, and as a mentor to young athletes. His career serves as a reminder that greatness isn't just about being undefeated, it's about continuing to grow, adapt, and inspire others. So what's next for Anderson Silva? Will he continue to push boundaries in boxing? Or maybe we'll see him mentoring the next UFC superstar? One thing's for sure. Whatever Anderson Silva does, the world will be watching. As we wrap up, it's clear that Anderson Silva's legacy is one that will be remembered for generations. From his record-setting UFC run to his continued influence in 2024, Silva has proven time and time again that he's not just a fighter, he's a legend. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think was Anderson Silva's greatest moment in the UFC? Was it his epic knockout of Vitor Belfort? Or maybe his comeback victory against Chael Sonnen? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on more UFC content. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay legendary.